Being no stranger to the handheld market up until recently, Sonic has had a few showings that have managed to keep players locked in with the Hedgehog even while on the go. And a couple of these pocket adventures, whole gameplay staples were born and have continued to be utilized to this very day. Everyone say, "Thank you, Sonic Rush." In other cases, these bite-sized takes on Sonic have implemented mechanics from their older siblings and trimmed down the fat from them, at the same time honing in to make those mechanics flow in a much smoother manner. Sonic Advance 3 is a superior, conceptualized version of Sonic Heroes that's 1/3 less complicated but 2/3 more engaging. Heroes, my beloved, slippery, and jank 3D platformer. You are indeed a sight to behold. Your story, though, more or less, is contrived and lacks any real form of structure. When only 1/4 of your main cast story is interesting, the fact that most people's fondness of your game comes from one fraction of it is certainly something, I'll say. The consensus for Sonic Heroes is usually as follows. 1. When revisiting the game, most people will do a playthrough of Hard Mode as Team Sonic, or a regular playthrough of Team Dark, and perhaps even both in some cases. Team Rose is not worth the playtime since you get less of the level unless you're trying to get the Chaos Emeralds. And Team Chaotix, although not that egregious in my own opinion, is usually relegated to and denounced as the one that no one wants to play. Unless it is your first time playing the game, which it is worthy of doing so if you've absolutely never beaten it, you can usually get everything you need out of Heroes just by doing either one of the Twin Hogs stories. Pretty much every one of the characters play the exact same, barring some minuscule differences that Amy and SPO possess or even lack, and that same is true for the power and flight types. The thing that pains me most about this is that there's a lot of potential within this game, and that's part of the reason why all of us are hoping for a remake at some point. With a streamlined story, different levels, or at least different level sequencing, and more abilities that feel like they could belong exclusively to these characters we play as. On the flip side of this, the younger sibling, Sonic Advance 3, revamped everything that we thought we loved about Heroes into this tiny adventure. One that truly shows off who these characters are and how they literally and figuratively interact with one another. Advance 3 decided to streamline everything about the Heroes formula. 2 characters from the start, both of which you can complete the entire game with and not unlock or touch any of the others if you don't really want to. Abilities that are the result of partnering up with certain combinations, and an almost one-to-one story that essentially makes this game Sonic Heroes 2. Within Advance 3, there is no contrived reason for all the characters to be present. The story for why they're all here, for anyone that didn't have the manual, is that Eggman uses Chaos Control and things go awry, leading to a separation of the planet, which Sonic and the gang have to fix. This game beats Unleashed to the punch, but that's beside the point. There are no diverging storylines that messily come together at the end without having an ounce of cohesion. It's as simple as, Eggman did some evil stuff, let's band together to stop him. I think that's what makes the simpler games, as I'll call them, either a make or break it for a lot of people, is if they're trying to be something that they're not. I'll die on this hill, but what makes Secret Rings and Black Knight so beloved in a lot of people's eyes isn't the gameplay, because that for sure has its fair share of problems, but it's the stories. Sometimes all you need is one central goal to work towards for all members of the story, and everything else will fall into place. Heroes was technically the first reboot of the franchise, where Sega was no longer making consoles, and as a result of this, the company didn't want new players who would be experiencing their first Sonic game on the console of choice to feel like they were missing out on a larger story. Ironically, the exact opposite happens, as exposition is everywhere, and you're bombarded with, for series newcomers, 7 or so characters that you've never seen before, each with already established personalities. Sonic Team wanted to keep new and old fans happy, and this entailed having a watered-down adventure formula, but the emphasis perhaps should have leaned more into providing a new conceptual experience for players across the board. Lo and behold, that's exactly what Sonic Advance 3 got to achieve. Completely shaking up the foundation of 2D Sonic, Advance 3 is the first game in the trilogy to feature 2 playable characters. Note that I am putting an asterisk before playable since you can't conventionally control where your player 2 goes in, a traditional sense. More on that later. Before this, the advanced games were sort of like a choose your difficulty style of play. You would have a total of about 45 characters to select from, all of which that provide various means of navigating through the stage. Sonic would be your normal mode, Knuckles would be the easy mode, Tails and then in Advance 2, Cream being the very easy mode, and surprisingly, Amy in both previous titles acting as the hard mode. The third game in the series switches things up a bit as different character combinations offer some unique attributes and moves for one another. You like the simple way that the 16-bit era played and have a soft spot for S3 and K? Choose Sonic as your partner, or if you're Sonic, choose Tails as your partner. Need an easier way to defeat bosses? Well, once you unlock Cream, partner up with her and Cheese will transform into a mini version of whatever character you're playing as and handle all of your attacks. What about adding a bit more difficulty to your playthrough? Well, that's where we have Amy. There are 20 combinations for you to try out, with some being admittingly better than others, but the variety is there. With Heroes, you are zeroed in on whatever team you're currently playing as, and that's it. No mixing and matching your all-speed character team together, or having Shadow partnered up with Vector and Cream. This is of course by design, but you can't deny that a mode in Heroes that allows you to customize a team of your own and fully utilize their unique capabilities wouldn't be fire. As the story goes, people thought that Sonic Adventure 1 had too many gameplay styles that bogged down the experience, and the ripple effect that had on the franchise is still being felt to this day. From Adventure 2 to even as recent as Frontiers, there haven't been more than 3 gameplay styles in a Sonic game since. With the ability to choose how you play, however, there's no need to force upon yourself combinations that you have a disdain for, and the story of Sonic Advance 3, for the most part, allows this. As I mentioned very briefly earlier, Advance 3 can be considered as Sonic Heroes 2. The story of this game is about as close as we've gotten to a sequel to the 2003 platformer in terms of the games. Eggman has created a clone of Emerald from Sonic Battle, and he's dubbed cleverly as Gemerald. You fight the robot on numerous occasions until in the very end he blindsides both you and Eggman, stealing the Chaos Emeralds and transforming with the intention of causing mass chaos. It's up to Sonic and Eggman to put a stop to him, which they do of course, and Gemerald is found on a beach sometime later where Tails fixes him up and rewrites the code initially implemented to cause what we have in the story. Minus the reconstruction via Tails and Eggman taking a more prominent role parts, that is bar for bar the plot of Sonic Heroes. To even get to the revelation point in Heroes can be an irritating slog for some people, because it is an absolute must that you complete all 4 campaigns and collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds in order to get the true final boss. The latter half of those can be taken care of by finishing Team Rose's story and then playing through all of their Act 2 stages in order to have more chances at the special stages housing the Emeralds. Once again, this is due to Team Rose having only chunks of a level to go through instead of start to finish like Team Sonic, a slightly extended version of the same level like Team Dark, or having to carry the key through mission objectives for the Chaotix. What is non-negotiable, however, is the former part of my statement, because there is no convenient way around this fact. You absolutely must complete every story in Sonic Heroes. As a kid, this is not the most painful thing to do, especially since in the case of my younger self, it's an excuse to play more Sonic. As an older first-timer though, I can only imagine how seeing the same exact set pieces in the same exact order gets annoying. Certain tasks, like finding the components necessary for accessing the special stages, may be a bit more difficult, but a quick switch to Knuckles can supplement this task. This was perhaps the first game in the 2000s that wouldn't force you to do multiple playthroughs to see everything, but we wouldn't see it again until Secret Rings about 3 years later. The subtle setup for Gemerald as the main villain of Sonic Advance 3 is done better than Neo Metal in Heroes as well. Leading all the way up to Sunset Hill Act 3, you only run into Gemerald one time. When you enter the boss gate in Route 99, you'll have a small brawl with him before he joins Eggman for the main event. In Sunset Hill Act 3 though, you're not presented with a gold ring like before. You have to make it past the robot prior to completing the stage, but this is the first time within 5 regular action stages that this happens. With how quickly Advance 3 sets up a standard Sonic formula like in the zone before this, to have them throw you for a loop right after lets the player know that something is up. The questions start to circulate, but the biggest ones for players when the game first came out was, wait, why does he look like Emerald? All of these come together without any dialogue needing to be spoken, and since many a person knows how the end of Sonic Battle went, you could anticipate that the true ending would play out the same. Sonic Heroes is a phenomenal game, truly. However, the lack of cohesion within the story, the jumbled and inconsistent gameplay design, and forfeiting of character individualism is what ultimately made one of the best-selling Sonic games nothing but a cult classic. Although Advance 3 took this recipe and turned it on its head, this would be far from the last time that Sonic tried his hand at innovation, as the Hedgehog has been through many gameplay styles, but we did him a favor and orchestrated exactly where he should go next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.